welcome to STEMedia Live, where we chat with some of the most inspirational and creative people in the STEM community. I'm excited, and look, don't act like this is normal. Y'all saw that intro. Don't act like we've been doing it all along. You know, we had to come out with a new intro, and we just trying to do a little different. We're gonna take it up a notch, and I can tell you right now, this evening is the perfect episode to do so, because I'm excited. Because as I said, most inspirational, creative people in the STEM community. Tonight is no exception, because we have the Queen Hood Naturalist with us, y'all. I can tell you right now, if you were in the studio with me, if you were in this room, you would feel the electricity that I currently feel, because I'm excited. It's going to be a great interview. But first, listen, I just got to tell y'all that this is a different day than usual. You saw the intro. It says STEMedia Live Sundays, and that's normal. That's what we typically do. But again, we just got to switch it up a little bit, because we have a very, very special guest. And I have to tell you really quick that STEMedia Live comes to you every week, brought to you by the STEMedia Network. That's right, STEMedia.com. You can visit it right now. It is in our beta mode, where we have a lot of videos, a lot of our content, so much we've been doing over the years, available for you to check out. It will be the home for many live series, many classes, workshops, so much to empower your STEM journey. So make sure you go check it out at STEMedia.com. And so now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I have to go ahead and introduce you to our guest. This is just, I can't contain it any longer. Our guest this evening goes by the name of Corina Newsome, aka Hood Naturalist, everybody. She is the Community Engagement Manager for Georgia Audubon and Biology Master's student at Georgia Southern, studying avian research. Having experienced the hurdles faced by people of color interested in wildlife careers, she has founded several programs to encourage high school students from underrepresented demographics to consider careers in wildlife sciences. Corina's mission is to center the perspectives and leadership of historically marginalized communities in wildlife conservation, environmental education, and exploration of the natural world. All right, family, I need y'all to do me a favor. I need y'all to get ready, get your hands together, give me some love in the chat, because I am right now about to introduce to some and present to others none other than this evening's STEMedia Live guest, Miss Corina Newsome. Put your hands together, everybody. There she is. There she is. She is on the scene. We made it happen. What's up, Corina?
Listen, when I saw that intro, the way I'm hyped right now, I'm hyped.
You know what I'm saying? Just for you. We had to pull out all the stops for you. I'm telling you, this is long overdue, and you are here. Welcome to STEMedia Live.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I've been a fan for a long, long time. So to finally be here with you is an honor. So thank you.
Listen, I have been a fan of yours. There's so much I can't wait to ask you to talk about as it relates to your journey and just like all the dope content you put online. You know, you are someone I definitely look up to and am inspired by. But let's go ahead and break the ice. This is what we typically do, Corina. Welcome to STEMedia Live. The first question for every guest is this. I read your bio. We're going to get into a little bit of your science background, but can you give us a random fun fact about yourself that somebody wouldn't expect to know about you after hearing that wonderful bio?
Well, I don't know. This fact isn't fun for me, but it tends to be fun for other people who watch it happen. I have a very deep-seated, what I think is genetic fear of butterflies and moths. And it's called lepidopterophobia. And it is, when I tell you it's severe, I've been, no matter where I am, if I'm doing science out in the marsh, or I'm at the zoo, or I'm minding my business, if a butterfly or moth comes around, I'm a different person. And I have run into traffic to avoid.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So you rather the car over the butterfly? Like, I'll take the car.
Any day.
That is crazy, y'all. If y'all hear that, man, y'all gotta definitely give her some love in the chat for being so vulnerable with us. Because what did you say it was called again? Say the name of it.
Lepidopterophobia.
Say one more time.
Lepidopterophobia.
Lepidopterophobia. I think I got it. Well, here's the thing I don't really get though. Like you're a birder, and I've seen pictures of you on the internet with like massive birds on your arm, but you tell me like a little flittering moth can like spook you more than that?
Listen, because I'm not afraid of pain. I'm not afraid to die, but I am afraid of getting like lightly brushed by a delicate.
Ooh.
When I tell you, and then like the colors, like the light color and the dark color,
Yeah.
it's ward off predators, and it wards me off. So I'm just like, all right, it's doing its job.
Wow. Well, hey, look, no judgment here. No judgment here. I appreciate you for sharing that fun fact. It's really interesting because some people look at it like, oh, that looks so free. That looks so peaceful and everything. But you're like, nah, I'll take death.
Peace is nowhere to be found. Yep.
I hear you. Well, thanks for sharing that. Again, y'all, this is the Hood Naturalist, as she is known on social media, aka Corina Newsome. She's coming to us live and direct right now on STEMedia Live. And if I'm not mistaken, Corina, you are, as they say, a Philly John.
I'm a Philly John. Yeah.
Philly John. Tell us about your background. You from Philly? You know all of that. Give us a little bit about the origin stories.
Yes, I was born and raised in Philadelphia, the Illadelph, Germantown. If anybody is from the area, that's where I was born and raised. Philadelphia is a really interesting place. You know, it's like you got a lot of rich people, a lot of poor people, a lot of natural space, a lot of urban space. It's a mix. But growing up in a low-income background, I didn't really have access to a lot of the nature. But I really loved wildlife anyway. So my mom, my dad, my grandma, they would stuff me with National Geographic magazines, all the books, right? So even though I didn't have like a forest near me, I was able to get into the books, right?
Right.
And Philadelphia is, I would have to say, it made me who I am in a lot of different ways. Like, it's a city of survival. It's a city of coming up. It's a city of like the endless hustle. And I feel like that has been ingrained in me from the time that I was a kid all the way through college, high school, all of it, my career so far. And like, it's been present, that drive. And so even though, like I said, I didn't really have a lot of knowledge about the natural world where I was, and really not about careers in wildlife either, I didn't know what to do with that. I was like, all right, I'm gonna be a vet. So I was like, all right, so I put my mind to the road, and I went and volunteered at a local animal hospital. I was walking 2 miles a day. I think like 5th grade. Like, I wasn't playing.
You were playing. Do you remember, John, sorry to cut you off, but I'm curious, like, do you remember that first spark for yourself though? Like, what was that first spark? Do you have a defining moment in mind?
So I think it was, so my dad passed away when I was 4 from in a car accident. So it was very sudden, and he had a lot of books. He was a huge animal nerd. And so he had a whole like library of books about wildlife. And so I remember just as a kid, like going through the books, and there was one book called, what is it called? Oh, it was like a wildlife encyclopedia that had, like, if I had a picture of it, I would totally know. Wildlife encyclopedia. And I saw a polar bear, which is so cliche, right? Everybody loves polar bears. It's fine. But I turned to the polar bear, and I saw a koala, actually. It was those two. And I was like, And from that point on, I think I had to be like 5 years old. And from that point on, I was hooked.
You were stuck. So you started walking to volunteer to just get up and close and personal with some of this natural life, huh?
Yes, to get to at least, something in animal sciences. I know what I wanted to do, but I was like, that is a familiar career. So I started volunteering. I was doing stuff I was not qualified to do at all. But got me experience.
That's how we do it, right?
Right. But after 5 years of doing that, I had got to like my senior year of high school, and all of a sudden, like, I was like, this is not what I want to do. I was like, I can't. I almost passed out in the middle of a surgery because I don't even know why. It just happened out of nowhere. Wow. And a friend of mine who went to my church heard about like my conundrum that I, didn't know what to do with my life. And he was like, hey, like, my sister works at the Philadelphia Zoo. Here's her cell phone number. I told her, that you'll call her. Let me tell you what I did. So when he told me that, Nehemiah, I was like, he was a black guy. Like, everybody knew he was black guy. And I was like, if your sister works at the zoo, she probably like works in concessions or maintenance. Why would you give me her number? I was horrible. Like, first of all, I had an attitude, like 17 years old, whatever. And then also, like, my world was so limited. I couldn't even picture.
Right. You didn't have you never seen it before. Yeah.
Never. So I literally called her with an attitude. I left a message. I was like, hi, Miss Michelle. My name is Corina, and I heard like with that tone, just horrible, terrible. So she called me back, and it turned out that she was a carnivore keeper at the Philadelphia Zoo and the lead keeper in the whole carnivore department on top of that. And I was like, at that moment, before I even met her, as soon as I found that out, everything shifted. And I was like, what? She said, Corina, because she could tell by my reaction that I had never seen it. So she said, come to the zoo, come see me, come behind the scenes. And like, that was like stellar treatment. Like no one got to go behind the scenes, especially with the carnivores, right? She took me behind the scenes. She showed me everything from the cool stuff. Like she was a giant river otter trainer and breeder for conservation. She was managing their genetics. She showed me the fun stuff, and then she showed me down to the paperwork, like what it looks like for her to keep track of health and keep track of.
She went in the details, right?
Wow. I remember I would be sitting in the chair, and she would just talk to me for an hour.
Wow.
I don't got time like that, but she would take time out of her day to talk to me. And she changed my entire life. Like her choosing to look through my bad attitude,
right?
To take, you know what I mean? She didn't have time for no kid, but she took time.
She looked beyond your faults. She looked beyond your attitude and saw your potential. Come on now.
To me, look. And so after that, like that was essentially the beginning of my career. And for 3 years after that, I volunteered or interned at the Philadelphia Zoo for 3 summers and got my experience in. Really got invested in wildlife conservation happening in my city. And that's essentially where my wildlife conservation field was born.
I love it. I love it. That brings to mind, of course, the quote people talk about, you can't be what you can't see. So when you saw her, she completely like shifted your entire paradigm, right? Like, yo, look, this could be you. You know what I'm saying? This could be you. And then also like the fact that she basically mentored you, took you under her wing, because I know firsthand, as you just shared, like that just makes a world of a difference, and I just want to say that to people out there, right? Like whether you have someone who's taking the time to invest in you, you may not be, realizing the benefit of it, or you're a person that's like, should I mentor? Should I give back? Look, it can make a world of difference. Obviously it did for Corina. I can tell you people in my life that has made the difference for. And so, that's really great to see that representation and the mentorship that you got from her. So shout out to her.
Yes, Michelle Jamison, you're the queen.
All right, we see you, Michelle. Shout out to you. Shout out to you. And Corina, like you, so you went to college and majored in zoo, and what was it? What was your bachelor's in?
Zoo and wildlife biology.
Zoo and wildlife biology in Ohio. What made you go to Ohio?
So when it comes to like people who really want to do wildlife conservation and animal care in particular, there's not a lot of programs across the country that specialize so much in something like that. So I looked everywhere, right? All over the country, coast to coast, right? Top to bottom. Right. And this little private school called Malone University in Ohio was the only school that I found that had something so specific. And I like visited and I fell in love with the program. So that's why I ended up in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, going to college, coming from Philly.
Well, listen, you definitely, but the mascot definitely is fitting. The pioneers. You were a pioneer coming from Philly, interested in wildlife and zooing, went all the way to Ohio. What was your family's reaction? And like, I guess the people who knew you growing up when they heard that you were embarking upon this path.
So everybody I was like one of those really intense kids. It was like, I'm very dedicated to what I want to do. I'm going to go to the top school, right? So everybody was basically like expecting me to go to some well-known school because that's kind of what I had always like said and people always said about me. And then when I chose this very specific path at this very specific school that nobody heard of, everybody was like, what are you doing? Like, nobody heard of that school. Like, why are you going there? And all, it was wild because when I went to high school, Nehemiah, I went to a private school. I got a basically full scholarship. I was living in poverty. Listen, okay?
Wow.
I went to this high school. It's called the Baldwin School. It costs like $30,000 a year. Like absolutely.
College tuition.
For tuition.
Yeah.
I was taking the bus, the train to go out to the suburbs to go to school, right? So all my peers, it was an all-girls school too. They went to all the like Ivy League schools and everything. So they was looking at me like I was crazy. everybody was looking at me like I was crazy, but my mom said, "Girl, go on ahead and do what God told you to do, right?
There you go.
It was in your chest to do."
Yes.
And she supported me the whole way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it played out.
You know, that's interesting too, because I think when you have those experiences early, like, you know, for you it was college, even high school, going to this school, this private school, you kind of build up like this confidence. It's like, look, man, I'm not afraid to put myself out there. I've been putting myself out there for years. Would you agree? Like, it helps you now when it's like, oh, you really gonna speak up about that? Or you really gonna put this video up? It's like, what do you mean? Like, this is who I am. This is who I've been.
Listen, I tell you, the stuff that I weathered as a child in high school and in Philly, like, nothing has been more difficult. I tell you, like, those times were so formative that now the challenges that I'm facing, not that they aren't significant, but it's like, I've been through this. It's like, I've been around the block. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, speaking of around, right, you start in Philly, then you go over to Ohio, and then I believe, if I'm getting this right, you came down and you worked at Nashville Zoo for a little while in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that experience after you left college.
Yeah, so when I graduated from college, I knew I wanted to go into zookeeping right away because I had been training at the Philadelphia Zoo for animal care and that kind of realm of conservation. And so I immediately started applying for jobs. I started first at Cleveland Metro Park Zoo. I was only over there for like 9 months. It was a very kind of brief entry level, $9 an hour job. Then I got a full-time job at the Nashville Zoo in Nashville, Tennessee. And my job there was an ambassador animal keeper. And so I worked with a really wide variety of species ranging, you know, everything from invertebrates like tarantulas and roaches all the way up to large carnivores like leopards and lynx and binturongs, like birds of all kinds, native animals from around the world. So a really wide variety of species. But my expertise was in animal training and education. So a lot of my time spent, you know, dealing with the psychology element of animal care, dealing with, you know, building trust, training, and educating the public about the natural world, which was, those two things were my absolutely favorite part of the job.
Yeah. That's dope. Everybody, this is the Queen Hood naturalist, Corina Newsome, with us, telling us a little bit about her origin story. Got out of college, worked at Nashville Zoo. And by the way, if you're watching this, feel free to drop a question in the chat. We more than welcome you to go ahead and chime in, and we'll see what we can get to. But I got a question, because it seems like you, not only in this love for wildlife and working at zoos, but you began to really seem like you began to take an interest in helping other people, bring other people up. All right. You know, harkening back to Michelle, people who really mentor you and push you, because you started some programs even while you were working at the zoo, right? For people to get experiences. Really talk about what motivated you, and what do you feel was sort of the impetus or the spark for you to start, I guess I can call it, community outreach and even activism in a sense. What really sparked that?
So the whole time that I was a keeper professionally, which was about 4 years total, I think, I was always the only Black zookeeper at the whole zoo. So whether I was Cleveland Metro Park Zoo or Nashville Zoo or Philly, actually, I think there was Michelle. So Michelle was there. Right. I think there was her and one other actually Black person who worked in animal care professionally at the zoo. And so, but, you know, after I left them in my internships, I was the only one in my classes, in college, in my, you know, literally everywhere, in my jobs. And so I had, after a while, become used to being the only Black person, only person of color, actually, usually, all these spaces. But I realized, like, so it was particularly when I went to Nashville Zoo, I would do a lot of animal shows. So I would get the chance to talk to like thousands of people every day, especially in the summer, because, you know, popular place to be. And I would frequently have Black parents come up to me and be like, my daughter wants to know how you got here, or like my son is really curious to, you know, what got you into this? Like, why, you know what I mean? I would always get those kind of like, you know, parents and families kind of waiting after everybody left to like come up to me. And I was like,
out, obviously, you know
what I mean? And it was just like a reminder, like the replay of what happened to me. Like, I never saw me before. And so I saw Michelle, you know what I'm saying? And so it was then that I was like, all right, there's no, like, I was worried that because literally everyone in animal care and animal professional fields at the zoo was white, that nobody would hear me, that because I would talk about these things, lack of diversity and how damaging it is to the field of conservation. And we should know that, like, we literally, that's what we do is diversity, genetic, especially, right? So
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the bedrock of conservation. But when it comes to people, it's like, no, we go with all white. Anyway, so basically one day I went to my, the president of the zoo and the leader of animal management. I was like, listen, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but I said, if you just tell me that I can do this, this will cost you nothing. I will use off work time to make it happen. I will do everything myself. I will require no help from nobody. If you just let me bring in high school students from Title I high schools in Nashville to shadow me for the day. I will not shirk my responsibilities. I will get everything done. I literally had to go through all these reassurances and ensure them that they would not have to sacrifice a thing.
You put it on your back, all on you.
But you know what I mean? Which is not good. Organizations should be putting up the funds and the resources, right? So
for sure.
That's why I say I don't recommend that path. But so they gave me the okay. It's Nashville Zoo is a newer zoo, so there's not as much red tape. So I tried to take advantage of that. And so basically just reached out to principals at all the Title I schools. I reached out to the teachers and I said, hey, here's a little application. If you know a student who's interested in animal care or wildlife conservation, have them fill this out and then send it to me. And, I think that started in 2017. And it's still going now. I'm no longer there, of course, but that program is still there. And so the program essentially, it brought high school students in and they would literally get to participate in every aspect of keeping. The cleaning that nobody likes to do, preparing the food, which for herbivores is fun, but when you get to the carnivores,
I know. You try to wipe your hands a little bit.
Right.
Make sure I'm intact. Yeah.
Right. It's important that when you're about to choose to go to college, that you have a really clear understanding of what it is you think you want to do and not kind of be mystified. So I showed them all of it, and then, they get tours the zoo, veterinary medicine section, the kitchen, everything. And so that's essentially what that program did. And at the same time, I was also running a program in conjunction with my university that I graduated from that exposed, and that program is also still going, but exposes, again, Title I high school students in the area to various careers of conservation. So they would go to the zoo for animal care. They would look at, environmental monitoring, wildlife rehabilitation. So kind of giving them a broad exposure to the kinds of careers they could pursue if they were interested in wildlife. And so those are kind of the two main, there were some other kind of little things that programs that I did, but those were like the two main ones that have been ongoing and have a vested interest specifically in high school students. And so I try to just recreate the scenario that got me here.
Got you into it, for sure.
Because the problem is that I feel like I only got here because I was extremely lucky. There happened to be a guy at my church who happened to have a sister that worked at you know what I mean? Like that shouldn't, all the stars shouldn't have to align for a Black person to get into wildlife science,
Exactly. I got to ask you this before we move on from the whole zoo thing, because, there's a lot of stereotypes out there, even, not just on the outside end, but we sometimes play stereotypes on ourselves. We be like, Black people don't do that, or Black people ain't trying to, and I'm sure you probably had some of those, uninformed opinions kind of sent your way as it relates to working with animals and big animals and all that like that. So I'm just wondering if you can maybe even share, has there ever been a time where you were maybe just on the inside said, all right, this is different. This is it maybe just a moment this is different. Or have there been times where you've been able to perhaps taking the veil off of somebody else, like your young people, where they're like, you know what? I don't know why I ever thought I wouldn't get into this, or Black people don't do this, because this is actually pretty dope. I'm just wondering if you've ever came face to face with those stereotypes in our community about what we do and don't do.
Absolutely. And it came first and foremost from my family, actually, not my mom. My mom was always right there by my side, but everybody else, like my older siblings and my cousins and everything, would be, when I would post a picture or something, they'd be like, Corina, that's disgusting, or ew, and it was actually a point at which I was getting mad. I was like, y'all gonna stay out my comments with these. But yeah, so when I first got started, they were all like looking at me side eye, but I eventually warmed them all up to it, and now they're they look forward to wildlife pictures with me.
Yeah.
But I think that the best scenario in which I saw people's opinions change kind of in a moment was, so I would often do outreach at schools, and I always really wanted to go to Black schools. If we were ever going to a school that I knew was predominantly Black or of color, I would say, hey, outreach outside the zoo wasn't really part of my job, but I'd be like, hey, can you send me there, please? First of all, I don't trust any of y'all to go. Second of all, it's going to be a lot more meaningful if I go. So
right.
I would go, and I would get comments from the teachers, sometimes the students, if it was like an older student crowd, and they'd be like, people like, what are you doing with that snake? Or like, just saying stuff, just trying to be funny or whatever. But in those same programs, by the end, they're reaching out to touch the snake. They're reaching out to, ask more questions about this animal that they were disgusted by just like 5 minutes before. So to watch that transformation, even if it's a small one, going from like disgust and horror to like curiosity,
right,
is extremely important. It's important 100%. Where it was an honor to be able to see that happen in education. So that's one of the reasons why I love education a lot.
Yeah, and that's why your presence is so important. What's the most exotic or the craziest like face-to-face encounter you've ever had with an animal? I'm curious.
That's tough. I think the scariest might have been, so there's a species of cat called a Canadian lynx, which is a really big, so our like lynx here in North America are fairly small. Canadian lynx are like really big. And there was one day that I was cleaning in, and we would clean in the enclosure with the lynx, which is like maybe a little scary, like maybe you shouldn't do that, but we would do it. It's legal. So we would have the keeper spotting us, and one of the keepers that I had spotting me was like on her phone. Something happened, like something took her attention away, and all I hear is, Corina. I turn around, this lynx is at my back. The lynx is not supposed to get within like 10 feet of you. Like,
man.
You're supposed to be watching. I turn around, that lynx was here, Nehemiah.
Oh my goodness. Like, what's up? What's good? What up?
I almost put locked my friend in that cage. Like, how dare you? But no.
What did you do? What did you do during that moment? Did you have to stay still? Like, I mean, that's what they say. Like, don't set no sudden moves.
Yeah.
That what it was?
She called him back to her, so she was able to like catch him in time before he like tried to playfully kill me. And like draw his attention away.
I know, right? Whoa, you know what I mean? Y'all about to square up. Y'all about to. You about to square with a lynx. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Oh man, that is crazy. But that's the story. Thanks for sharing that, man. 'Cause I can't imagine that. But all the time we see stuff, and I just always imagine. I think for me, honestly, on a personal, like if I knew 100% that I was safe, like if I can say that, all right, nothing's gonna happen, I'll be happy to see an animal close. Like I think maybe like my most. Do you do anything underwater at all? Like I think maybe some of the like large water creatures. I know that's sort of a different specialty, but I think anything on land, I'll be cool if I know for a fact that it's not gonna like turn on me.
I don't listen. As a rule, I don't trust no animal to not turn on me. I don't care if it's a frog or.
Okay, all right. Well, listen. If you don't trust no animal not to turn on you, then I think that says enough for me. No, that is, man. I think again, like your presence is like in and of itself. I think removing blinders and opening up doors and really shifting paradigms. So I again want to commend you, y'all. This is Corina Newsome, aka the Hood Naturalist, from a Philly John, not working with wildlife, natural conservation. I love it. And you went to grad school in Georgia, in ATL. Talk about that transition and what you've been doing lately, at least as it relates to your formal training and things like that.
Yeah. So when I was an undergrad, I fell in love with birds. And during a class called Ornithology, which is the study of birds. And so even though I was a keeper and I knew I wanted to do zookeeping, I also knew that at some point in the future, I wanted to contribute to wildlife conservation in the field through field research, conservation research. And so after about 4 years in animal care, I decided it was time. I was ready to go back into school. And I'm glad I took the time, by the way. Like, that was good for me.
Right.
So once I was ready, I went to school at Georgia Southern University, which is actually in Statesboro, Georgia.
Okay. Okay.
And so I moved there from Nashville. And, since Philly, I kind of been working my way south into kind of more southern-like places. And so the culture shift was, kind of gradual going, forward. But then when I got to South Georgia, that was something different. I was like, oh, I'm really not from here.
So Georgia Southern, wait, really quick though, that is Georgia Southern. That is America's nearby. Is there a city called America's nearby? America's, Georgia? Albany, Georgia?
I think so.
So
I'm not super familiar, but
okay, all right. So I was actually born around those parts. Like my birth hospital is around those parts, believe it or not. Yeah. I don't talk about a whole lot because like my parents literally drove to a hospital in Americas, Georgia, South Georgia, because my dad wanted to deliver me. And but I never like lived there. So yeah, just FYI, fun fact about for the STEMedia audience. So now I got it. Statesboro, Georgia. Yeah, you're right. That is definitely rural. That's definitely, you are a minority indeed in those parts. So I just realized that though. But yeah.
Yeah. Wow, small world.
Yeah.
So I basically wanted to study. I knew I wanted to study birds as a group, but specifically the kind of question that I wanted to ask was, I want to answer a question that helps us help birds survive in a changing world, because a lot of birds depend on certain seasonal patterns, right? When you think about birds that migrate, which is a lot of birds, especially in this part of the world, you're thinking about climate change, right? Slightly shifting what the seasons actually look like when they happen, shifting the temperature extremes, right?
Yeah.
You have a lot of environmental changes that are happening specifically because of climate change, and that is where my interest lies. So, at Georgia Southern University, I ended up studying a species of bird called the seaside sparrow, which is a coastal bird. They live in salt marshes and tidal salt marshes on the coast, on the Atlantic and Gulf Coast of the U.S. actually. And because they live on the edge of the ocean, they're essentially at ground zero for climate change. The coasts, are experiencing sea level rise most immediately, right? When storms get really intense, the coasts are the hardest hit. And when you're in a place like Georgia, it gets so hot, right? So there's so many things happening on the coast, especially
the humidity, the coastal, you're right. It's a lot.
It's a lot for people and wildlife, right?
Yeah.
And so essentially with that bird, they're in a really interesting predicament because they live in a tidal environment, which means that the water level rises twice a day and then falls back down. And it's pretty extreme tidal amplitude in Georgia. It's like really high tides and, really low tides. So they're adapted to sometimes experience nest flooding during a high tide. And what they usually do is, if their nest is too low in the grass. So this as a background, they build their nest in the grass in the marsh. So it's elevated off the ground and it's built in the grass. Sometimes they get flooded during a high tide. The chicks drown, unfortunately. Their response is to build another nest. The parents will build another nest right away and they'll build it higher off the ground to avoid flooding again, which is like, usually that's great.
Yeah.
But the issue is that the higher a nest is in the grass, the more exposed to predators it is. So in fact, while they might be lessening the risk of flooding, they're increasing the risk of predation. So it's like a very fine tightrope they have to walk to even successfully rear any offspring. Climate change, all right? So keep that in mind. Climate change is expected to make high tides higher and higher and higher because of sea level rise. So high tides are getting higher and higher. So that means that we're expecting nest flooding to happen more often. And so that's even further kind of narrowing this already very fine line these birds have to walk to survive. And so given this, right, nest flooding, nest predation, I decided to study the nest predation side of their survival because predators are something that wildlife managers can actually do something about. So I wanted to understand, what is the pattern of nest predation across their landscape? Is it more likely to happen in certain areas compared to others? What does the landscape look like? Just to give wildlife managers a better idea of where the greatest threat of predation tends to be, because it's basically interacting with the threat of nest flooding that is going to get worse and worse. So that's essentially what my research was in the marsh. And so I spent 2 summers in the South Georgia salt marshes, which was a life-changing and character-building experience.
I know. I can imagine. Like, were you like the data collection, and that, I guess that's what you're getting to. Like, how, are you just basically finding several instances of it and recording what you find? Like, how are you collecting data exactly during this time you're down there?
Yeah, so my days would usually look like me going out and just looking for any active seaside sparrow nest. So It's walking up and down the channels is what they're called. Marshes have little channels in them. Walking up and down the channels, looking for any active seaside sparrow nest. And when I saw one, of course, record its location, all this, and then I would put a video camera on it. And it would record anything that happened, but it was there so that I could see if the nest was, found and preyed upon by a predator. But I also got to see lots of other bird drama take place, which was a lot of fun. Not part of the research necessarily, but it was just cool to watch.
The bird drama ain't nothing like the bird drama. I tell you.
The drama, nothing. And then I would also have camera traps that were distributed across the marsh that are motion triggered cameras so that I could see, where are the predators just walking around, right? Where are the predators relative to where nest predation is happening? Mm-hmm. Understanding that dynamic. And so that's essentially what data collection looked like for me, scrolling through literally hundreds of thousands of pictures of moving grass and crabs, occasionally seeing a predator, and then, looking for nests and monitoring the seaside sparrow nests.
I love it. Well, listen, nobody can say you don't know what you're talking about if they want to talk about that. Yay. You could definitely take somebody down the long haul at a cocktail party on that topic, because you speak on it like someone who fully gets it and really understand it. You sound like someone who may be trying to finish up something in grad school. and I was just wondering, if you could share what you wish, but it's just like something you see, like the research aspect of what you do. It's just something you can see you doing a lot more in the future, or how does that prospect look to you? Just curious.
Yeah, so I a couple weeks ago defended my master's thesis and I passed, thankfully. So these years of work, especially this past year, I couldn't even see the light at the end of the tunnel. I was
man, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. So I defended it and I plan to publish it, of course. But in the future, because I have become more and more invested in the human dimension of not just wildlife conservation, but environmentalism, mm-hmm. Any future research that I do, so I'm still not sure if I'm gonna be a doctor like you one day.
Oh, listen.
But
it would just be a formality for you.
If I ever go back to school or do research again, I would want it to be around the human intersection of wildlife conservation or environmental sustainability, somewhere around there, but more involving the social element, because being a Black person, from the city, from a low-income background, my lens, the way I interpret the world and move through this career is necessarily intersectional. Like I automatically detect when there are inequities along socioeconomic lines or along racial lines because they happen to me, right? So, but that's like largely lacking in the conversation in these white dominated spaces. We already know what's going on. We know what's up, right?
Right. We're not
But in the decision-making rooms, that's not being reflected. And so being able to contribute that intersectional lens and perspective, informed perspective into wildlife conservation decisions and environmental sustainability decisions is like where my heart lies. Still love birds though, always.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm going to ask you a specific question on that in a little bit, as well as we got some just general wildlife questions. But I want to acknowledge a question in the chat that says, Ms. Fulber Dishman says, tell us about bird drama. Can you define that really quick? Give us what bird drama is exactly.
Yeah, so there was one night, where I had a video camera on a nest, and that what I told you about, this high tide flooded a nest, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And there was 2 eggs in a nest and a chick that had just hatched like 5 hours before. All right, so brand new baby. High tide rises into the nest. This baby and the eggs are floating on top of the water. You can see the baby like doing all this. It's floating, but it's like moving, and it's like breaking my heart. Right? I'm just like, oh, this is so hard to watch. Then a fish jumps into the nest. I lied to you not. A fish was swimming around
right in front of you,
outside, literally like bloop, into the nest. Right, and I'm sitting there like, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
Then the fish grabs the chick, pulls it underwater, and starts just thrashing it around, trying to rip bits off of it, preying upon this baby chick. A fish. And so, like, I was messaging everybody. I called my advisor. I called the fish people. I was like, what is happening? Is this a thing? And it had never been published before. So I recently actually just published that finding about a fish eating a bird while it's in the nest during a high tide. Wild stuff, man. And that's just one.
That's just one example. How in the world did the fish even know, like, that was a nest and there's a baby? What in the world?
I don't even know what the series of, like, how it ended up there. Like, they have chemoreception, so they can sense the chemical, output of things in the water and find food that way. But it just was in the nest, like, that's just a lot.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's a whole lot. That's a whole lot. Well, I'm gonna dig into this really quick. I got this new segment, y'all. We got a new segment called our new segment is called School Me. School Me. We debuted the intro with you tonight. We about to debut our new segment, Corina, and this is a segment where we're gonna get your just you to school us a little bit on some photos I got in your area of expertise. Now, we have first off a bird here. I believe this is a type of vulture. What can you tell us about this bird, Corina?
Yes. So I just want y'all to know it is my life's mission when it comes to education to make people love the animals that people don't be loving, right?
Okay.
So this is a vulture. This is called a black vulture, and it's a bird that you can find in North America, especially like in the East. Vultures, okay, are perfectly adapted for cleaning up our mess, okay? So their bald head keeps them from getting, grossness stuck in their feathers as they dig their heads into rotting carcasses, right?
Oh. Okay.
And then their stomachs have an acidity that is stronger than a car battery. It can break down and kill everything: anthrax, cholera, rabies, any pathogen, bone, metal. Like, it can dissolve and just wipe out anything. So these birds are literally walking like cleanup machines that we would literally not survive without. So next time you see a vulture, I want you to say thank you.
I love it. That is incredible. Y'all, make sure you drop something in the chat or in the comments if you didn't know anything she just shared. I had no idea about anything you shared. So I'm so glad. I think I respect vultures just a little bit more now, Corina. I appreciate it.
You got to.
What about this here? Look like we have some possums here. What can you tell us about these possums?
That's right. So Virginia opossums, like, people look at these animals, like, you see them as roadkill. Matter of fact, people be trying to hit these animals. Like, they see them in the road, they be going out of their way to try and hit these creatures. And let me tell you, just like the black vulture and vultures in general, opossums are critical for our health. So when you look at an opossum, you might be kind of freaked out by the number of babies they can have, right? They can actually successfully rear 13 offspring at a time, right? So that means they can just overrun, just babies everywhere. You know what I'm saying? They got these bald tails that nobody likes to look at, but they're really cool because they're bald, because they're prehensile, which means they can grab things with them, they can hang by them.
Right.
You couldn't do that if it had, hair on it.
Yeah.
But these opossums are actually master tick eaters. One opossum, okay, and there's lots of them. One opossum eats about 5,000 ticks in a single summer season alone. One opossum. And there are millions of opossums, right? So every opossum that you see is decreasing the chance that you will get a tick-borne illness like Rocky Mountain spotted fever, or a Lyme disease, or that your dog will get sick, right? Or your cat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So opossums are doing the Lord's work. They're also our only marsupial in North America, right? So, like, they're super cool. They're very cool.
Oh my goodness! So without possums, we'll probably have more ticks, more diseases that come from ticks. That's crazy. That's incredible.
So if you in the South and you got bad ticks down here, and sometimes in the North too, like, New York and all up there because of the deer and everything, you need your opossums.
Yeah. And they got all those babies, babies on babies, baby on babies. All right. What about here? This is a cool looking frog right here. Tell us about this frog.
Yeah. So a lot of amphibians in North America are slept on by the general public, like, because they're very secretive. You might hear them, but you hardly ever see them. This is called a wood frog. And amphibians in general are really great for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're good indicators about our environment, right? So if you have amphibians, a lot of diversity, it kind of tells you that, okay, this ecosystem is healthy, right? There's not a lot of toxins here because they're very sensitive to toxins in the environment. But this particular frog is very cool because a lot of people might wonder, like, what happens to amphibians in the wintertime, right? Like, how do they, they're squishy, they're soft, like, what happens, right? Well, this species of frog is actually found as far north as the Arctic Circle, okay? They will, in the wintertime, freeze solid, like solid.
The actual live frog would freeze solid.
Yes, the frog is completely hard, completely solid. Their heart stops beating, they're ice. Their body, though, is designed to keep them alive even though they're frozen. So what happens is, essentially, there's this antifreeze that I think has what is it, like urate, something like that, that's around their cells. So it acts like an antifreeze around the cell, so it'll freeze, but the cells themselves don't freeze. If the ice got in the cells, the frog will be toast. So as far as we can see, this toad or this frog is rock solid, but their actual individual cells stay alive because of this natural antifreeze that they have. And then in the springtime, they thaw out and keep on pushing like nothing ever happened. They go find a mate. When that springtime thaw comes, they look for a female. The males are usually looking for a female.
Yeah.
When they find one that wants them, they'll actually grab onto them, like hug them from the back. It's called amplexus. And the female she'll lay her little eggs, and the male will get his little sperm on top of them, and boom, went from frozen to reproducing.
Hot. He went from cold to hot. Just that's it. He got it heat up quick.
Just like that.
Oh my goodness. I love it. So check this out. Corina. I got one more thing to ask you about. All right. One more just cool piece of content related to your expertise I gotta ask you about. Here we go.
All right.
Thing for the count. They do anything for the count. Do anything for the count. They do anything for the count.
Look, whole lot of people need to hear this. It's a lot of birds on my life list. Mockingbirds say what they want to. Albatross take a big dish. I should write a whole blog at this rate. Use Mandarin ducks for clickbait. Kingfish on.
Corina, tell us about this. Tell us about this piece of content. This is something you dropped. How long ago? Was it about a year or so ago?
It was like 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago this spring. No, me and my friend Antarius, who's the guy in this video, we were in grad school together, like literally in the middle of midterms, had a lot to do, but for some reason, I think Clout had just came out by Cardi,
right?
Cardi B, and he's actually a lyricist, like an artist. He was like, "Don't put me in this video, this crazy."
Do anything for the count. They flying north, they flying west, birds flying south.
Hey, so you wrote? Did you write? Look at that. That's great footage too. That is great footage. Did you write your? So you wrote? Y'all went to the studio and you wrote it?
So we basically, the way it happened was, I sent him some, bird adapted lyrics, and then he sent me some, and we went back and forth until literally the whole Cardi B verse was remixed for Bird. And then we were like, we need to record this. And then we were like, we need to make a video. And we had so much to do in Nehemiah.
Oh, man.
So much to do.
That's great. That's creative procrastination right there. You said y'all had a lot to do, but y'all shooting a music video, dropping the track.
Writing lyrics.
Hey, listen, the best creations come about like that. And that's a class. I feel like that's probably the first time. I feel like I've seen you before that, but that's when I was like, oh no, this is dope. Like she dropping heat. Like I saw it on Instagram, I believe. I'm like, oh, she dropping heat.
That's hilarious. No, because we really, and we didn't expect nobody to see it. We were just like, all right, we're just gonna put this out here. It's crazy. And then people were really thinking it. We was like, what?
Dope, man. Dope. I love it. So you got bars. You definitely got bars. You might have to check this out. We got just so the audience know, we got a STEM poetry slam happening a week from today. Next week we have a STEM poetry slam. It's an event we've been doing with STEMedia every year, where we challenge people to put bars together and infuse science, technology, engineering, and math into their bars. And so if we came through, you probably would take first place. So we might not need to let you. We might not need to let you enter like that. You know what I mean? You might just need to come and judge, see who was coming into the game behind that, because shoot, you got you got it. Do anything for the count. You know what I mean?
They be waiting for something else to drop. I'm like, yo, I don't got nothing left. That was everything I got. That was it.
Yeah. I love it. Yo, well, y'all, I just want to thank you again for schooling us a little bit. We was able to hear the backstory behind that video, that heat that you dropped online. But I guess for the last portion of this chat, Corina, I gotta go back to again just your growing interest in just social issues as well, right? And not only did you talk about inequities just in the spaces that you work, but I've also seen you post things as it relates to voter rights.
Oh, Nehemiah, I lost you.
All right, Corina, I have no idea what just happened there. Completely. See, they don't want us to win. They don't want us to get this topic. They don't want us to get this topic. They're going to get this work anyway. They don't get this work. All right. Talk to us a little bit about, that passion. Again, you mentioned it a little bit before, but I've seen you post things on voter rights. You were also one of the co-founders, I believe, of Black Birders Week after the situation in Central Park.
Yeah, I was one of the co-organizers.
Yeah, one of the co-organizers. So that was fantastic. And matter of fact, just speaking of like that was a perfect intersection for you right then and there, right? Mm-hmm. So let's again go back to that and some of the things you're hoping to do. You talked about if you did a PhD, you would study in those areas, but just in general, what are some of the things you're involved in and that you're looking to do in that particular space?
Yeah, so I had mentioned this word like intersectionality before, and it really applies everywhere all the time, right? Every person, no matter who you are, has a variety of identities that either contribute to your privilege or to your exploitation or to your oppression, a variety of experiences. And so Black Birders Week and the advocacy that I've been a part of since then, whether it's about voting rights or it's about, environmental racism, whatever it is, it's like we can't talk about any of these issues in a silo, especially not in wildlife conservation, especially not in environmentalism. And the reason why I'm so involved in these social justice issues is because surviving in climate change and making effective wildlife conservation policy and management decisions requires justice in the other realms. It requires that everyone has access to sharing their experience, sharing their perspective, whether we're talking about voting, at the ballot box, having access, or we're talking about having access to the education, right? Having access to the experiences in the outdoors, whether we're talking about being able to live healthily in the environment in which you exist, right? If it's toxic to go touch the soil where you live, if it's toxic to fish the fish where you live, right? Like all of these experiences have to be thought about together because they intersect very strongly. And so in my work, so I'm currently the community engagement manager at Georgia Audubon. And for me, this job is a great way for me to engage those intersections. A lot of my work centers around, so I'm a biologist and I have the science background. But I'm able to apply not only my science and what I know about birds and, bird natural history and science and biology and all of that.
Bird drama,
also apply it in the context of the social environment, social context in which we live. And so, for example, one of the most recent programs that I've been able to do at Georgia Audubon is to very intentionally look at the city of Atlanta and say, where are the areas that have low income, right? That they have low socioeconomic status and low data when it comes to birds. The realm of bird conservation is actually really unique because everyday people can just say, I saw a cardinal, I saw a robin, and submit it, and it goes to the main scientist in bird conservation and gets factored in. But what we found from research from one of my friends, Deja Perkins, actually at North Carolina State University, is that we see almost no eBird data in poor areas, not because there aren't birds there,
right?
But because there's an inequity in the engagement around community science.
Gotcha.
And so part of my job is recognizing, okay, what are the systems that have created this all white, older demographic, all, middle and upper class, cross section of our communities that we serve here at Georgia Audubon and in wildlife conservation in general. What has created this? And to counteract that, to rebuild new systems, to create programs that intentionally counteract the systems that have been in play for a really long time, and going into those communities. And of course, to be clear, I don't want to have what it, can be thought of as like the white savior method to what I'm doing, right? And so while I'm a Black person from the city, from a low-income background, I'm not from Atlanta. So I'm not about to show up in somebody's community and say, here's what you need
follow
to do.
Me.
Right. There are already leaders, there are already efforts, there's already organizing that's happening in any community that you go to. And so what I do, and what I always recommend other people to do, is you go to the leadership, submit yourself to the leadership that's already there and say, these are the resources that I have. Here's, how I think I can apply them. What do you think? What matters to you? What are your priorities, right? And be led by the leadership that's already there. And that's the most effective way to really engage, going across these lines that have been so rigid and so deeply ingrained for a long time, to make equitable conservation happen, to make equitable education happen. So that kind of work is the work that I currently do and want to continue to do in the realm of wildlife conservation and all of the arenas in which that intersect with it. Yeah.
Can you see yourself doing that in a more media-backed approach in the future as well? Like, are there any aspirations to maybe, I don't know, a TV show or a documentary or, things of that nature? I'm just curious, since you are very present online in the media.
Yeah, so I've never been someone who wanted to be on TV per se. I've done media stuff and it's cool, but it's I love the interpersonal, person-to-person interaction.
Gotcha.
But I do want whatever medium it is, whether it is TV or media, whatever it takes, for this message of the importance of intersectionality and following the leadership of historically oppressed and marginalized and currently oppressed and marginalized communities. That needs to be spread far and wide, however it needs to happen. And so I would say I'm open to those possibilities and have entertained those possibilities, but through any means necessary, I intend to help others recreate the kinds of programs that I or other colleagues of mine are able to start, the wisdom that we've been able to garner from our elders, from leaders in our communities, and to make sure that, people don't feel like they got to reinvent the wheel. Listen, people are doing this work. Here's a really good blueprint to follow when it comes to community engagement. So that's kind of what I want to be able to contribute to the larger society in my work.
Well, listen, I think you are undoubtedly the right person for what you're doing. Obviously, the right people are going to come alongside you. You're going to make the right connections, as I know you probably already have made connections across the birder community and just in general. I know what you're doing is valuable. I totally look up to you in so many respects. I was just saying, I was about to tell you to say, let the people know how they can find you, but you got your own Wikipedia page. I mean, hey, if they want to find you, they can just go on Wikipedia real quick, check you out on Wikipedia. So you don't even need to do any of those plugs. You know what I mean? You already out here. You know what I'm saying? The Hood Naturalist is out here. But anyway, you do have a Twitter account, right? Your Instagram. What are some of the things that you're using to express yourself currently that people can go check out?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Instagram and Twitter. So on Instagram, you can find me at Hood__naturalist, and on Twitter it's Hood_naturalist. And on there, I frequently share my own explorations, the cool things I see in the natural world, but also share opportunities for you to engage in civic engagement, to participate in civic engagement, to participate in social activism, through the different people who I've been able to connect with who have advocacy efforts to save lives and to increase access to justice for all people. Liberation is our goal, right? Yeah. So I try to share as many opportunities for that as possible. So if you're interested, definitely feel free to follow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, listen, I sincerely thank you for your time. I am just beyond elated to have had this opportunity to chat with various aspects of who you are, the Hood Naturalist, Corina Newsome. And I know there's just so much more that we could talk about. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about whether online or offline in the future. This has been fantastic. Please let please be aware. Please know that I definitely support what you got going on. If there's anything I can personally do or STEMedia do to support you, definitely just reach out. But in conclusion, do you have any parting words of wisdom for us?
I would say, in the words of one of my incredible mentors, Dr. Raywyn Grant, who's a Black woman and a carnivore biologist. One thing that I heard her say to a young 5th grade girl who said, what's your best advice for me? She said, don't let your performance steer you away from your passion, right? So when kids are young, when they're in high school, middle school, sometimes like they might get bad grades in science or math, even into college, right? Like I've had people who are now PhDs, massive publishers in their field, do horribly in math and science, even in college. But because they cared so much, they loved what they did so much, they kept going, and now they're blossoming. So that word of wisdom from Dr. Raywyn Grant was so valuable to me, and I keep that with me because it applies even outside of the academic context, right? Because sometimes failure can feel derailing. But if it's something that you care about and that you're passionate about, it's not the end, and you shouldn't let it be the end. Keep following it. So that is the word of wisdom that I would like to share with all of you.
I love it. Thank you, Corina. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's an honor, Dr. Nehemiah. Thank you.
The honor is all my family. I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you go check her out and follow her on our platforms. This is STEMedia Live. We do this every week. We chat with some of the most creative and inspirational people in the STEM community. And today, of course, there's no exception to that. Corina, all the best to you this week and all the best to your future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Same to you.